of power. Joining us now, Legal Eagle, your favorite, Mike Davis. So, Mike, I'm just going to let you take it away, okay?
Thank you for having me on. And this is what we've been talking about for the last year, since last August, with the unprecedented, unlawful, unnecessary home raid on President Trump for his presidential records that he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. We see this lawfare on many different fronts. Alvin Bragg indicted President Trump, a former president, for the first time for the non-crime of a businessman settling a nuisance claim. Jack Smith indicted President Trump for the non-crime of a former president having his presidential records, which is allowed by the Presidential Records Act. Now Jack Smith and this Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, have indicted President Trump and 18 others for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Twisting political arms is allowed by the First Amendment. If it's illegal to object to presidential elections, Democrats would be in prison for objecting to Republican presidential wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016. This is lawfare. This is election interference. They're not even hiding it anymore. And this is clearly driven by Joe Biden and Merrick Garland in the Biden Justice Department. Fani Willis was asked about if she was communicating or cooperating with the Biden Justice Department, including Jack Smith, at her highly inappropriate press conference, and she declined to answer that question. She answered everything else, but she declined to answer that question. And House Republicans, I'm very happy that Jim Jordan sent out this letter today to Fani Willis demanding his communications with the Biden Justice Department, because this is clearly election interference. This is clearly lawfare.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this Fani Willis is unbelievable. Now they're saying they might want to try it in the next 2 months, try all of the defendants in the next 2 months. So talk about the complexity, okay, of prosecuting, quite frankly, any case, but a RICO case, and then one where you have like 18 other co-conspirators, etc. There's no chance this can be tried in, 2 months, whatever. That would make it ripe for appeal. Like, it's unbelievable. A lot of weaknesses with the case. So what's your reaction to that?
I mean, you're a former prosecutor. You know how silly it is for Fani Willis, after waiting 30 months to indict President Trump and 18 others. This is a legally frivolous case under the racketeering theory, but it is a factually very complicated case where you're talking about many different potential witnesses in many different states. If you're alleging this racketeering conspiracy like across 6 or 7 different states, these defendants have the right to defend themselves. They have the right to call witnesses. Yeah. They have the right to gather evidence, and you can't do that within 2 months. And it just shows what this is all about. This is election interference.
Mm-hmm. And it's election interference. They want to tie him up and make him sit in court every day. Is there anything, because many people ask me, well, is there anything that Republicans, like in Georgia, in that particular state, could try to do to end this malicious prosecution?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Georgia Attorney General, if he is, I don't know if he's still working, or maybe he took the high holy month of August off like members of Congress do, but it sounds like, when you're dealing with an out-of-control local rogue prosecutor who is weaponizing the justice system, inappropriately bringing indictments against federal officials for performing acts within their official duties, she can't do that. That needs to come into federal court. You can't have a local prosecutor try federal officials in a local court for alleged crimes. You have to bring that in federal court. And so the state attorney general should be stepping in, and there's under the Georgia statute, the state attorney general is required to work with these local DAs when you're dealing with these federal cases that are removed to federal court. So I think that the Georgia attorney general needs to come out of hiding and start jumping in here and doing his job.
Unbelievable, right? The cowardice. And the people should remember that the people they elect, when they don't go in there and actually do the job. There's also some chatter, and this is kind of interesting because of more of their dirty tricks, for Democrats in blue states about trying to get Donald Trump off the ballot, citing 14th Amendment's disqualification clause. Talk about how a case like this that could play out, and is there any precedent that you think we can look to?
This is an absolutely frivolous legal argument that will get overturned by the Supreme Court. But more importantly, the American people will be enraged if they think If these Democrat prosecutors and these Democrat judges and these Democrat juries and these Democrat hellholes like New York, D.C., and Atlanta think that they get to pick the next president of the United States instead of the American people, there is going to be a tremendous political backlash on November 5th, 2024. What they're trying to do is cite the disqualification clause in the 14th Amendment. That is, if there was insurrection against the United States during the Civil War, those people who committed insurrection against the United States during the Civil War were disqualified for federal office under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. That is not applicable here. There's no allegation whatsoever that President Trump incited any violence on January 6th. He had a lawful protest with a permit from the National Park Service, and the protest got out of control and turned into a riot. It was not an insurrection. How many insurrectionists get to the Senate floor of a nation's capital and take selfies and walk through velvet ropes? They burn down the damn place. This is nonsense.
Yeah, it really is. But, it's just crazy. Any tie-in with that and your reaction to, the debates and stuff last night?
Well, I thought the vice presidential debate was very interesting. There's a lot of potential contenders for vice president. I think Vivek was probably the strongest debate performer. I think President Trump has a lot of people from which to pick for his vice president. There are people who aren't challenging him now, maybe like Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds from my home state. She'd be someone who President Trump should consider for his vice president. But I'm glad he didn't show up last night because it was truly the undercard debate last night. And I will say, on this lawfare against President Trump, I hope President Trump's attorneys quickly file a motion to dismiss all these January 6th indictments under two legal theories. Number one, presidential immunity. If he's acting as the president of the United States, trying to tell his vice president to do something, that is within his official duties or the outer perimeters of his official duties within Supreme Court case law. If he's acting within his personal capacity, he's protected by the First Amendment. So it's either presidential immunity as president or First Amendment as presidential candidate. And if you file that motion to dismiss, you can get presidential immunity decided on interlocutory appeal. You don't have to wait until the criminal trial is over to appeal.
That's correct. And that's a big tactical procedural advantage to be able to do that. And you're right, there's two paths for success there. He's either acting in personal capacity or he's acting within the realm of his presidential powers, etc. Kind of similar to the Presidential Records Act, too. That's why these things are factually insufficient and legally inapplicable. So let's hope that we have some courts with some cojones to get this done. But I have to tell you, you always give the best analysis. I couldn't wait to get you on. It's like, okay, we got to get Mike Davis. Drew's like, okay. All right, but you're the best. So, hey, and we're all going to keep an eye out tonight to see what happens. I know a lot of people out there, our viewers and everything, are praying for the president and thinking about him as he has to go through another one of these sham indictments and just, just an embarrassing time in American political history for what they are doing to a man who has given so much to America. But thank you for standing strong and for helping share all the information with our fabulous listeners and viewers.